My fiancée brought her ex to my birthday dinner. When he gave her flowers, she made a comment that ruined everything. I blew out the candles, made a wish, and left. The next day, she panicked, begging me to undo what I had done. Hello, everyone. My name is David. I'm 28, and for 5 years, I've run my own physical security consulting firm. I started in my home garage installing basic alarm systems, but over time, we became the go-to experts for high-end surveillance setups and access control systems. Our clients range from millionaire mansions to corporate headquarters, where knowing who enters and leaves truly matters. 2 years ago, I met Michelle, 26, at a craft brewery opening. You know those events with overpriced drinks, people networking forcefully, and absurd conversations about the current climate. But she immediately caught my attention. A marketing executive at a tech company, sharp, ambitious, the kind of way you can tell she's going to go far. We clicked from the first moment, which is rare for me. Now, let me introduce the team that made this story unforgettable. Tom, my best friend since college, an IT expert by day, a comedian by night, and an owner of unfiltered sarcasm. From the beginning, Tom nicknamed her Princess PowerPoint because she literally made presentations for everything. Honey, I prepared some slides with a cost-benefit analysis of our weekend plans, she would say. Then there's Carol, my older sister, a criminal defense attorney and an expert at detecting hidden intentions. She has that older sister's protective instinct and can sense trouble before anyone even says a word. At the first family dinner with Michelle, she whispered to me, "This girl is calculating. Be careful, David." Oh, and my dog, Rocky. He's 3 years old. He's an adorable golden retriever, loyal as few are, and quite clumsy. He once got his head stuck in a cereal box and decided to just live that way. I found him 20 minutes later, happy with his cardboard helmet. Another important figure is Natalie, a college friend, a personal trainer. Imagine someone who could lift your car but still laughs at dad jokes. We were always just friends, but her role gains importance later on. And I couldn't forget Rachel, Michelle's younger sister. Arrogant, she treats employees like servants, and once demanded to speak to the manager of a coffee shop because the foam on her latte wasn't Instagrammable. She was all the negative aspects of Michelle, but amplified. From the start, Michelle constantly talked about her ex-boyfriend, James. They dated for 3 years, and according to her, they broke up because he didn't want to commit. Translation: he escaped in time, and she never got over it. That should have been my first warning. James's name came up daily. James got a promotion. James bought a Tesla. James's mom was in the hospital. Everything was him. Tom even started keeping score during shared dinners. His record, 23 mentions of James in a single night. "Bro, that guy is more present in your relationship than you are," he let loose. Carol was direct. "She's using you as a placeholder while she waits for him to come back. You'll see." At 6 months, everything seemed normal. We didn't live together, but we spent most of the time at my place or her apartment downtown. I had bought my house 4 years earlier after securing several important contracts. Nothing extravagant but comfortable, with space to work, and a yard where Rocky could chase squirrels. Rocky, by the way, adored Michelle. But this dog is a bad judge of character. He once tried to befriend a raccoon that was clearly planning to attack him. Even so, every time she came over, he would bring her his ball as if she were the reincarnation of a jerky treat. The first serious alert appeared when Michelle's company needed an upgrade to its security system. That's precisely what I do, so I offered my services. Professionalism above all. Big mistake. What should have been a simple consultation, she turned into a 3-hour presentation with graphs on brand synergy. She had slides about my own business. Still, I installed the system. Impeccable work, fair price. But then Michelle started intervening in my marketing. She redesigned my website, added her email to customer communications, and even signed invoices as if she were my partner. When I confronted her, she said she was optimizing brand presence for maximum market penetration. When I told Carol, she was forceful. "She's treating your company like she bought it. Soon she'll want shares and a corporate car." Tom was more blunt. She's colonizing your life, one PowerPoint slide at a time. But the masterstroke came as my birthday approached in October. Michelle said she wanted to organize a networking experience to celebrate it. Not a party, an experience. She booked a pretentious restaurant downtown where they charge $40 for 3 asparagus spears and call the dish deconstructed cuisine. One of those places where the waiters judge your wine choices. The guest list was the usual. My friends, Carol, who flew in from Chicago just to witness the spectacle. But the day before, Michelle dropped the bomb. Oh, and I also invited James. I was reviewing security footage for a client and had to mentally rewind to make sure I had heard correctly. James, your ex? Yes, but we're just friends now. Plus, he has incredible connections in the tech world. This could transform your business. She used the word transform to justify inviting her ex to my birthday dinner. And she added, Rachel is also coming from Springfield. She's really looking forward to meeting everyone. Rachel, who had ignored my existence for 2 years, was now really looking forward to celebrating my birthday. I immediately called Carol. Let me get this straight, she said in her lawyer's tone. She invited her ex-boyfriend to your dinner and presents him as a business opportunity. And her sister, who treats you like furniture, is now your fan. Carol was silent for a second. Brother, this woman thinks you're a fool. She's plotting something, and you're the only one who doesn't see it coming. I should have canceled, but I was curious to see how far she would go, so I said, Let's do it. It might be instructive. Carol laughed. I'll be in the front row for this train wreck. The night of the dinner, something already felt off. Michelle had spent the entire day on the phone, laughing as if she were having a conversation too intimate to be just friendly. The restaurant was exactly as I imagined. Dishes described as works of art and a wine list that required a bank loan. We had reserved a table for 10. Carol insisted on accompanying me, and honestly, I was glad to have her. And soon, everyone started arriving. The first to appear was Tom. As soon as he saw the menu, he leaned toward me and muttered, Brother, are they seriously charging $30 for a plate of mac and cheese? I hope your company insurance covers public humiliation. Carol arrived impeccably dressed, as if for a trial, a sober suit, a serious face, and sat in a strategic position where she could observe the entire environment. Little by little, the others appeared. My partner Jack, Tom and his wife, plus 2 couples we frequently hung out with. The only ones who hadn't arrived were James and Rachel. However, Michelle kept checking her phone every 10 seconds, as if coordinating a military operation. 25 minutes after the reservation time, the show began. James walked in carrying a bouquet of purple dahlias, as if he were the protagonist of some telenovela. But the most unusual thing was that he went straight to Michelle, completely ignoring me, yes, the birthday boy, and handed her the flowers with a charming smile. For you, beautiful. Happy spring. I should clarify that it was late October in Chicago. The forecast had freeze warnings, and this guy was talking about spring as if we lived in another hemisphere. Michelle's reaction was the final straw. She not only accepted the flowers but lit up as if it were Christmas morning. Purple dahlias. You knew they were my favorite. You always had better taste. How sweet. Immediately, she turned to everyone and announced, Look what James brought me. Isn't he incredibly thoughtful? The silence at the table was brutal. Carol stopped writing with her pen. Tom's mouth dropped open as if he had just witnessed a slow-motion accident. The rest looked at us, unsure whether to intervene or hide under the table. James barely gave me a nod. Happy birthday, man. Thanks for letting me come. And he sat down right in front of Michelle as if he had organized the whole thing. Carol leaned into me and whispered, Is this really happening? I didn't manage to answer when Rachel made her triumphant entrance 15 minutes after James. She was so heavily perfumed that you could disinfect an entire room with her scent, complaining about the parking and immediately posing with the flowers as if she were the author of the romantic gesture. From that moment on, I experienced the most surreal dinner of my life. I was at the head of the table, supposedly as the honoree, watching my fiancée have what was essentially a reunion dinner with her ex, audience included. They laughed at inside jokes, reminisced about shared trips and people, talking as if the rest of us didn't exist. "Remember that weekend in Napa when it rained?" James asked. "Of course," she replied, laughing. "We took shelter all day in that tiny wine bar. The photos from that day, you two looked like a postcard," Rachel chimed in, as if directing a scene. Carol started taking notes, literally as if gathering evidence for a case. Tom kicked me under the table and signaled, "What the hell is this?" What happened there was not just a lack of respect. It was planned humiliation, and I was no longer going to be part of the show. The dinner extended for almost another hour. James took over every conversation, talking as an expert in wines, vacation destinations, and even modern art. Michelle looked at him, fascinated, as if listening to a sage and not a charlatan. Rachel filmed everything as if making a documentary. I simply watched my partner have a date with her ex on my birthday, while our friends tried to hide their discomfort. And then the cake arrived. The waiter brought the cake with lit candles, and to top it off, it was James who started singing "Happy Birthday," as if he were the event host. Michelle wrapped her arm around my shoulders for the first time all night, a gesture so forced that it felt insulting. "Make a wish, love." I looked at the candles, and it was at that instant that everything made sense. This wasn't just about James's presence. It was about a woman who thought she could publicly humiliate me, and that I would just take it without saying a word. But what no one there knew was that there was another plan that night, a much bigger one. Michelle and I had been engaged for 4 months. I was planning to announce our wedding date that very night. I had even planned to make a toast. Her parents had already paid $15,000 for half of the venue and catering. My part was on deposit. The ring, in fact, was in my jacket. Not because I planned to propose again, but because I wanted to upgrade it for the occasion. How things change. I blew out the candles, stood up, and said, "Actually, I have an announcement to make. Michelle and I will not be getting married." You could hear a pin drop. Michelle's face changed color several times. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "James, since you seem to be the host tonight, the bill is yours. Thank you for organizing my birthday dinner, and congratulations on whatever is happening here." James's face crumbled. "What? I don't understand. I'm not—" "Oh, and James," I added, pulling out my phone. 5953. That's the code to enter my house, right? JLE on the keypad. Quite clever. The table erupted. Tom yelled, "No fucking way!" so loud that half the restaurant heard it. Carol leaned back, smiling as if she had waited for this moment her whole life. Michelle abruptly stood up, panic replacing her false serenity. "You can't cancel the wedding like that." "Watch me do it. I have months of security footage of you two having your reunions at my house while I was away on business travel. The wedding is officially canceled." Carol also stood up immediately, in lawyer mode. "Footage? This is glorious." James tried to salvage something from the disaster. "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like. You've been playing house owner while I worked to pay for that ring. But if you like the place so much, maybe you can start paying the mortgage." Rachel couldn't close her mouth. "You were engaged?" "We were going to announce it today," I replied, taking the ring box out and setting it on the table. "Surprise," I said with a contained smile. "The plans changed. James will cover the dinner bill. Michelle already has her flowers, and I have to take care of canceling some wedding vendors. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my birthday. It's been truly instructive." Carol stood up, grabbing her purse with determination. "And I have some fascinating legal points about infidelity and rights over shared assets to discuss with my dear brother later," she added. As I headed toward the restaurant exit, I heard James in the background trying to explain to the waiter that he needed to make an urgent call to sort out the payment for a dinner exceeding $450, while Michelle screamed that I had no right to dissolve an engagement without her consent. Tom and Carol followed me outside. She was radiant. "That," she said, almost ecstatic, was the most elegant public execution I've ever witnessed. James is collapsing over the bill, and your ex-fiancée looks like she just watched her world crumble. My phone was already vibrating with messages from Michelle, but I had already made a decision. It was time to start the real show. That night, I did what I should have done much earlier, a complete analysis of my home security system. Tom arrived with pizza. Carol brought drinks and her inseparable legal notebook because, according to her, this is juicier than any case I've ever taken, and I plan to document everything. Rocky, my dog, couldn't have been happier. He brought us one of his toys every 5 minutes, convinced it was the best party in the world, unaware that we were about to discover a betrayal recorded in high definition. My home has one of our most comprehensive security packages. Cameras at all entrances, motion sensors, smart locks with access logs, everything. When Michelle and I started dating seriously, I showed her how everything worked, where the cameras were located, and gave her access for security reasons since she sometimes stayed over. What I discovered was much worse than I had imagined. James had been coming to my house every time I traveled for work, which happened at least twice a month. The recordings showed him arriving with her, entering with his own code, 5953. Yes, James, punching the code on the keypad as if the place were his. He was living a kind of domestic fantasy in my house. They used my Netflix account, ate my food, slept in my bed, walked my dog. There were even clips where James was giving Rocky treats, as if trying to bribe my own dog while sleeping with my fiancée. "This is surreal," Tom commented, pointing at the screen. "He's wearing your university sweatshirt and giving the dog treats." "What nerve!" Carol was furious. "This is not just adultery," she said coldly. "It's trespassing. She gave him access to your property without your authorization. It's illegal." Meanwhile, Rocky continued destroying a tennis ball, oblivious that his official treat distributor was the villain of the story. Reviewing the logs, I saw that James's code had been used 17 times in 3 months, always during my absences and for long hours. The door camera had recorded him arriving with luggage. The interior cameras showed them cooking together, watching movies, acting like a happy couple in my living room. I revoked all codes except mine. I also changed all system passwords. Then, I sent Michelle a single text message with a screenshot. James entering my house with the date and time from 3 weeks ago while I was installing a system in Denver. Her response was immediate. "We have to talk." I replied with a gif of Samuel L. Jackson saying nope. Carol, in lawyer mode, analyzed everything as if preparing for a trial. Professional advice: don't respond anymore. Document everything. Let her sink herself. The next step was to break the professional connection. I had installed the security system for the company where Michelle worked. I sent a formal email to her boss explaining that, for personal reasons, I would reassign their account to another member of my team. I copied my director of operations so that everything was documented as a professional matter with no room for misinterpretation. Implicit translation: your employee used a professional relationship to facilitate a personal matter, and I am no longer comfortable with that situation. Then came the masterstroke: my real estate investment. 3 months earlier, I had bought an apartment as a rental investment. Pure coincidence that it was in the same building as Michelle's. It was an opportunity offered by a business contact. The numbers worked, and I mentioned to Michelle that I had a property without revealing the location. Mine was 3F, hers 3B. Same floor, different lives. A week earlier, my tenant informed me of leaks in the bathroom ceiling. I asked my administrator, Mark, to schedule an inspection, but due to scheduling issues with the tenant, it couldn't happen until now. "Mark," I wrote, "that leak in 3F needs urgent attention. It could affect other units on the floor." He immediately replied, "An emergency inspection has already been coordinated for tomorrow. Building management will check neighboring apartments as a precaution." Tom raised his glass to "the most poetic coincidence in the history of revenge." Carol also toasted. "And to Karma, who also has a law degree." "It's not revenge," I replied. "It's responsible property management." 2 days after that birthday bomb, I was at Carol's apartment helping her move furniture when someone knocked hard on the door. Carol looked through the peephole and smiled as if it were Christmas. "Look who came. Your ex-fiancée. and she looks like she hasn't slept since the disaster at the restaurant." She opened the door, and Michelle appeared with smudged makeup, messy hair, and a frantic look. "Where is he?" she asked, trying to force her way in. Carol didn't move. She's 5'8" and does CrossFit. Michelle bounced off her like a ball against a wall. "He's not here," Carol said, "but I am, and we have things to clarify. I need to talk to him about the wedding. He can't cancel everything just like that." Carol let out a burst of laughter with that tone that precedes a verbal demolition. "Of course he can. That's what happens when you cheat. Cause and effect. Sound familiar?" Michelle turned red. "You don't understand our relationship. I understand that you brought your lover to his birthday. I understand that you gave him access to his house without his permission. And I understand that you are so arrogant that you believe being unfaithful includes financial compensation. Well, no, it's not that simple. Yes, it is. You cheated. You were caught. You lost. The end." It was then that Michelle launched her favorite move, the manipulative cry. "My parents already paid everything." "We lost $15,000. Carol took a step forward. Her voice became deep and firm, as if she were in court. "Perhaps your parents should have invested that money in teaching you values instead of paying for a cheater's wedding. You are just as cold as him. Heartless. Wrong. I am not like my brother. He was kind. He gave you years of his life, work connections, a ring you never deserved. I saw what you were from the first day. I warned him, but he is too noble to listen to his older sister. I don't dislike you on a whim. It's because you are a user. You used his professional expertise, his marketing knowledge, his house for your infidelities, and his generosity to finance your lifestyle. You are literally a parasite in designer clothes." Michelle burst into tears, but Carol wasn't finished. "You want to know what I really think of you? You are pathetic. You had a man who loved you, who boosted your career and planned to marry you, and you lost everything. Why? For an ex-boyfriend who didn't even have the decency to pay the bill and disappeared without a word." "I made a mistake," Michelle sobbed. "No, you made conscious choices over the course of months. You decided to let James into my brother's house. You decided to organize this humiliating dinner. You chose to prioritize your ex over your fiancé. And now you choose to harass his family instead of facing the consequences like an adult. I just want to explain. Explain how you accidentally fell onto James again and again while my brother was working his back off to pay for your ring. How you accidentally organized a romantic reunion on his birthday. How you unintentionally decided to embarrass the best man who has ever been in your life. I watched the whole spectacle from the kitchen. Never in my life had I felt more proud of my sister. As a last attempt, Michelle let out, "Don't you understand what it means to have a history with someone?" Carol's reply was a dry blow. "I perfectly understand what loyalty is. You clearly don't. Now get off my property before I call the police for harassment, and the next time you try to play the victim, remember that security cameras don't lie." 3 days after Carol verbally dismantled Michelle, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I was in a meeting with a client installing a security system at a tech startup when the desperate messages began. "What did you do? There's water everywhere. The apartment ceiling fell. My laptop is destroyed. All my furniture ruined. Call me now." But that was just the beginning. Among her chaotic messages, complaints from her family also arrived. First, her mother called. "How dare you embarrass us like this? We invested in her future with you." Then her father, more direct. "We need to talk about financial compensation for the lost deposits due to your impulsive decision." And then Rachel, "You humiliated her in front of everyone. You owe us money for this whole mess." The actual water situation was a little more complicated. The plumber discovered a major leak in a shared pipe between my unit and Michelle's. That pipe had been deteriorating for months, causing hidden structural damage. When the wall was opened to investigate, all the accumulated water burst out, causing a disaster in both apartments. Building administrators declared both homes temporarily uninhabitable for at least 4 to 6 weeks. The wooden floor in Michelle's apartment was destroyed, her furniture unusable, and her bedroom turned, as Tom put it, into an expensive indoor pool. While she dealt with her literal flood, I faced the emotional one. Her family demanded I return the $15,000 invested in the wedding. Venue, catering, flowers, everything. Her mother even spoke of breach of contract, as if we were partners in a company and not a broken couple. "You can't just cancel a wedding and leave us with the expense," her father said. "Of course I can," I calmly replied. "That's how things work when your daughter cheats. Consider it a very expensive parenting lesson." When Michelle finally called me that night, I answered as soon as I saw her name. "Where am I supposed to live?" she demanded, as if her situation were my responsibility. "As I understand it, James has a comfortable place. It didn't seem to inconvenience you when you decided to do your thing. My parents want you to return the deposit money. Your parents can want whatever they want. I wanted a faithful fiancé, but as you see, we don't always get what we want. You still owe us that money. I don't owe you anything, except to end this conversation. Oh, and I'm going to need you to return the engagement ring." "What ring?" she asked, feigning ignorance. "The engagement ring, the $8,000 one you're still wearing. Since there won't be a wedding, I need you to return it. That ring is mine. You gave it to me. I gave it to my fiancé. You are no longer her. Legally, engagement rings are conditional gifts. No wedding, no ring. I'm not going to give it back. We'll see." I hung up and immediately called Carol. In Illinois, the law is clear. Engagement rings must be returned if there is no marriage, regardless of who cancels and why. 2 days later, Michelle received the legal documents demanding the return. The irony is that her parents had to pay the lawyer because, after the flood, Michelle had run out of emergency savings. When Carol found out, she just said, "So, let me understand. She's homeless. She's being sued for the ring. Her parents lost $15,000, and James disappeared after leaving her with the dinner bill. This beats any lottery prize." For his part, Tom continued investigating James through mutual acquaintances, and apparently there was much more to it than we thought. 2 weeks after the water disaster, I went out for coffee with Natalie. She had written to me after hearing about the birthday scandal, just to see how I was feeling. "That whole thing sounded completely insane," she said. "Who brings flowers to their ex at someone else's birthday?" We talked for 3 hours. Natalie was the complete opposite of Michelle. Sincere, direct, and with a clear view of relationships. She confessed that she always thought Michelle was self-centered, but never said anything because I seemed happy. She treated you like an accessory, as if your presence was only to make her look good, not as a real partner. We started seeing each other more often, at first as friends with no romantic intentions. And with her, I rediscovered what it was like to talk to someone without masks. She was interested in my business, said my security systems were fascinating, and never tried to optimize my digital image. Meanwhile, the fight over the ring continued. My lawyer filed a clear lawsuit, return of conditional gift. Michelle's lawyer, on the other hand, tried to argue that by being unfaithful, I had forfeited the right to the ring. The judge didn't take him seriously. "Your Honor," said the opposing counsel, "my client received the ring with the reasonable expectation of marriage." "And my client," mine replied, "had the reasonable expectation of fidelity, an expectation that was broken in his own home, as the security videos demonstrate." Case closed. The judge ordered the immediate return of the ring plus court costs. Michelle's parents had to pay an additional $2,500 on top of the $15,000 already lost. As soon as I got the ring back, I sold it without hesitation, and those $8,000 bought me the best gamer setup I could have imagined. High-end graphics card, 4K monitor, premium sound system, the whole package. Tom and I started organizing epic video game sessions in my office. Rocky, my dog, usually accompanied us, dozing next to my chair and waking up occasionally to bark at explosion sounds. "Best investment you've ever made," Tom told me during one of our Call of Duty marathons. "Much better than being married to the queen of presentations." But the real bomb came from Tom's intelligence network, our friends, who were following the drama between Michelle and James with the fascination of a telenovela. It turned out that James was not just an ex-boyfriend with a commitment phobia. He had been married for 2 years. His wife, Jenna, worked for an international consulting firm and spent most of the year traveling between offices in different countries. James was leading a double life. He pretended to be single while his wife was away. Everything collapsed after the birthday dinner, when he had to pay a $450 bill with the card shared with Jenna. When she saw the charge, she called him to ask, and his explanation didn't add up. Jenna investigated. She found messages between him and Michelle on the shared phone plan. She discovered photos in the cloud. She detected receipts for hotels and restaurants that did not match what he was saying. 2 weeks after my birthday, Jenna filed for divorce. She had enough evidence of adultery to leave him with nothing. The process was fast because in Illinois, infidelity is still a valid cause. James lost the house, half his assets, and his reputation. His response was to completely disappear. He blocked Michelle, deleted her from social media, and moved in with a friend. He ignored her as if she had never existed. Michelle, for her part, did not have a stable place. She tried to stay with Rachel after the flood in her apartment, but that only lasted 4 days. Rachel kicked her out for causing too much trouble. She ended up in an extended stay hotel, almost as expensive as renting an apartment, alone and wondering how she had ended up that way. Her parents, furious at having lost $15,000 and seeing her self-destruct, turned their backs on her. Her mother was clear. "We raised you better than to leave a good man for a married guy who doesn't even return your calls." But the story didn't end there. 6 months after that infernal dinner, I married Natalie in a simple ceremony that cost half of what Michelle's wedding would have cost. Natalie's parents were lovely people and welcomed me with open arms. Tom was my best man, and his speech was unforgettable. To the happy couple, and to all the security cameras in the world, may this marriage be as solid as the evidence that ended the previous relationship. We included Rocky in the ceremony as the ring bearer. He wore a small tuxedo and only got distracted twice by squirrels while walking down the aisle. The photographer captured a great image of him trying to eat the centerpiece flowers during the reception. The party was in full swing when I noticed a commotion at the entrance. Security was talking to someone who clearly wasn't on the guest list. I approached and saw Michelle arguing with the staff, urgently demanding to speak with me. Carol noticed too. "Not today. No way," Carol said as she approached. Michelle saw me first and crossed the room, drawing everyone's attention. "We need to talk. It's very important." Natalie squeezed my hand. "Do you want me to handle it?" "No, relax. I'll take care of it, but don't go far." Michelle approached, agitated and clearly distraught. She was about 6 months pregnant and wore an outfit that tried unsuccessfully to conceal it. "Congratulations," she said with obvious bitterness. "I see you bounced back quickly." "Thanks. You look different. We need to talk privately." "You can say whatever you want right here. Natalie is my wife." She looked around, uncomfortable with the attention. Then she dropped the bombshell. "I'm pregnant." "Congratulations. I'm sure James will be delighted to take responsibility." "James won't return my calls. He's cut me out of his life since the divorce." "I'm sorry to hear that. And what does this have to do with me?" Then she blurted out what I already suspected. "I need your help. This baby could be yours." Silence fell over the ballroom. Carol appeared magically at my side. Natalie squeezed my hand even harder. I stared at her for a few seconds, trying to process that level of madness. "Seriously, Michelle? You're going to do this here, at my wedding, in front of everyone? You didn't know how else to find me, so you decided to ruin my wedding with this? Fine. Then let's start with the basics. I want a paternity test. DNA doesn't lie." Her face lost color. "I don't know if that's necessary." "Of course it is. If you're so sure the baby is mine, you shouldn't have a problem proving it." "I thought you'd want to help." "Help with what? A child who is probably not mine, from a woman who cheated on me for months in my own home? No. The only thing I'm going to do is prove that you are still the same liar you've always been." Carol was smiling as if it were Christmas. "I'll have the paperwork ready tomorrow morning," she said. Michelle took a step back. "You're making a big mistake. When you get the results, you'll regret it. Security finally intervened to escort her out of the venue, but not before she shouted, "You'll be looking for me when you realize the truth." The reception continued. Although everyone was talking about the scandal, no one could believe the audacity of showing up at a wedding with a paternity accusation. Tom found me at the bar later. "That was insane. Do you think there's any chance?" I looked at Natalie, who was laughing with Carol, unperturbed by everything. Then at Rocky, who was devouring cake scraps under a table. "First thing tomorrow, we'll know for sure," I replied. "But no matter what happens, I already know who my real family is." The paternity test was scheduled for 9 a.m. I didn't know what to expect. Part of me was convinced the child wasn't mine because of the timeline and her history of lies, but there was a small voice saying, "What if it is?" Either way, I had a computer that ran like a rocket, a wife who respected me, and a dog who still thought cardboard helmets were fashionable. Whatever happened the next day, I had already won. The morning arrived gray, as if the weather knew what was about to be revealed. Michelle was already at the lab when I arrived, with that same haughty air as always, as if she still believed she was in control of everything. We didn't talk. We just signed. They took our samples, and we left separately. 2 days later, the result arrived. Negative. You are not the father. I didn't feel relief. I felt certainty. Certainty that my doubts weren't paranoia, that my boundaries were rightly set. I didn't have to carry responsibilities that weren't mine or guilt that didn't belong to me. Michelle tried to call me. Then she sent a message saying I could still count on her, as if she still had a place in my life. I didn't respond. I ignored her as you ignore the echo of a past that no longer hurts, but no longer matters. Meanwhile, Natalie was humming a song in the kitchen. The dog was dragging a cardboard box down the hallway, and my computer, turned on, awaited my next project. Whatever happened with Michelle was no longer my problem. The truth came to light, and this time, it left her alone.